sex education teachers of Reddit, what's the weirdest thing you've had to clear up for a student? One of the girls in my health class in 10th grade didn't understand the concept of erections. She asked the teacher, so they can just happen anytime. Oh my god, what if somebody in this room has one right now? It was 10th grade. I did. Edit. I was a student, not the teacher, hence the eternal erection. She probably thought that erections could only happen in a sexual setting, and the thought of being in a room with turned on folks freaked her out a bit. I taught sex ed when I was a Peace Corps volunteer in West Africa, a Red Cross volunteer, and I did a Q&A session with the middle and high school kids. Best question, by far, was if you have sex with a girl on her period, will you become a hunchback? Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the director's cut. Had to be when the teacher passed out the diagrams of all the fun parts, and one girl just blurts out, "Holy shit, I have 3 holes?" And one of the guys answers, "I could have told you that." Bonus points. I went the religious high school. I'm a high school English teacher. A girl walked up last week and asked out of the blue, "How many holes do girls have down there?" I was surprised, but decided to just be honest. I said 3. Your vagina, urethra, that's your pee hole, you don't pee out of your vagina, and Uranus, that's your butt. She shouted, "I knew you didn't pee out of your vagina," and ran off to tell whoever she was debating with. Glad I cleared that up. I can still remember my first girlfriend and all her female friends debating that. As a guy, it was surreal to think that you wouldn't know how many holes you had. I was 6 and curious, because you can't feel which it comes from. They are close together, and both feel wet. It is sort of like when someone puts 2 pencil tips on your neck. You only feel one. If one hurts, you definition know which it was, but other than that, not really. Anyways, I was 6. I decided to check. I was a chubby 6-year-old and couldn't tell, so I pulled my skin up and stretched my head down. Found out that day that girls can aim. Peed on my own face, but I knew which hole it was after that. My first student teaching placement was in an inner city 7th grade, and the first unit while I was there was the reproductive system. I was asked, "Can your sister get pregnant if you masturbate on the toilet seat? Will my penis fall off if I masturbate too much? And if a girl gets pregnant from a blowjob, will the baby come out her mouth?" That they were having sex. Disabled Youth Summer Program. Sex Ed Day comes around whenever future parents of participants are wary of why we need a Sex Ed Day. This is one of my examples. Yup, 2 of the teenagers, while they knew they weren't supposed to have sex, had no idea what sex was. Turns out that they had figured it out on their own. The knowledge of what they were doing dawning on them was kinda horrific. We could be pregnant? Ah, fun times. Sex ed is also very important for people with disabilities, because they are at higher risk for sexual abuse. Not a teacher, but I remember a student asking if sperm could ever crawl around on the table. He then demonstrated this with his hands, as if they were like worms, and that they would wriggle around searching for the nearest vagina. That's a scary thought. I'm not sure I will ever sit beside a guy on the bus, ever again. Got a lot of guys just whacking it on the bus huh? Well, if he was fapping earlier that day, after the shower, and one of those sperm were crawling around, looking for a vagina, well. Was teaching a group of 8th grade girls. Someone asked, "Why do guys always want to come on your face?" Which I suppose is a fair question. What did you answer? Me, if you don't want someone to come on your face, you can ask them to come somewhere else. Student, like on my chest. Me, sure. Whatever you're into. There isn't a wrong place to come, unless you don't enjoy the experience. There isn't a wrong place to come. Ain't that the truth? I'm not a teacher, but one kid asked Mr. Teacher if I have sex with Jake, and Jake has sex with Alexis. Does that mean I had sex with Alexis? He was dead serious, and that kid had many more moments like that. Unfortunately, I'm not a sex ed teacher, but the best one I can remember from my sex ed class was when our teacher, a rather attractive looking female, was showing us how to use a condom. She held out 2 fingers and slowly unwound the condom down her fingers. One confident young lad, let's call him Chase, asked her the question. Chase, do you have any that are bigger than that? Because that looks way too small for me. Teacher, oh, trust me honey, you're not that big. Needless to say, the rest of us called the burn unit. The teacher, however, proceeded to play with the condom, stretching it all the way up her arm. But the initial shock leveled Chase. I'm 95% sure he switched schools the next semester because we so mercilessly picked on the scabby remains of the flesh burned on that day. Biology teacher, for the 10th time, you cannot get pregnant by swallowing. They are two separate paths. Also a fav at sperm banks. How do they get the sperm out? Edit. OMG yes, one stab wound freak exception. But trust me, it would have only confused them. If I tried to explain that, it would have resulted in I can't even. I'm literally shocked. So like, I'm more likely to get stabbed if I swallow. Why? A middle school boy pulled me aside after a sex ed class and asked whispering, Mr. Dingus, what happens if you get a boner during sex? I told him that's what boners are for. A look of ultimate understanding and clarity dawned upon him. I felt good. A boy in my 8th grade health class asked our fairly attractive female teacher what a vagina tastes like. She paused, thought about it, took a deep breath and said, acidic. But not bad. Just slightly acidic. One day, you'll know what I mean. That sounds inappropriate, but there isn't really an impersonal way to answer that question. True, but it's important not to let questions weird you out when answering them. The way I look at it with my sons is, if they are old enough to ask the question, then they are old enough to get a straight up no bullshit answer. When I was a substitute teacher having to teach that class I got, my mom said that you can only get pregnant on Sundays after church, and you have to be married for at least 90 days. And you have to be at least 25, and you can't have any alcohol, because alcohol takes away your baby eggs. This was a high school junior. I worry for her. My mama said, why do alligators have all dem teeth but no toothbrush? Some 9 and 10-year-olds that I taught got a bit hung up on pubic hair and wanted to know if it was possible for two people's pubic hair to get tangled up together during sex and what you do if it did. They were also concerned about pubic hair somehow getting pushed up into the woman's vagina during sex. Those were some quite surreal conversations. Earwax sizzles if the girl has STDs. This myth seemed to be going around the public high school when my friend was volunteering with a sex ed program. To check if it's safe to not use a condom, stick your finger in your ear, then covertly slip it inside the girl. It'll fizz like Pop Rocks if she has any STDs. Ducking foolproof genius. When I was taking sex ed, my teacher had an argument with almost all the girls in the class, telling them that you only bleed about 1 teaspoon during your period. We had to do a fill in the blank group quiz once, and one of the questions was how long does the average period last? I said 5 to 7 days and the boys looked at me like, how did I know that without looking in the book? I told them I was a girl. It clicked for them. Got super awkward. This was like 7th grade, I think. This reminds me of the guy who kept asking why girls got candy machines in their bathroom. P.S. It was a tampon machine. Worst cotton candy ever. Not a teacher, but I never get to tell this story. In 10th grade we had a health class which was focused on exercise and general health principles. One class the school brought in a lady to go over sex education. She did her presentation and asked if anyone had any questions, and one girl raised her hand and asked, how do you use the coat hanger? The teacher didn't really catch on, so the student continued, like, when you shove it up there, how far does it have to go? What exactly are you aiming for? The lady was stone silent, got viably upset, and left the classroom. The girl got called down to the office, and next class we had a new sex education instructor who offhandedly mentioned that there are safe ways to deal with unwanted pregnancy. For a sex ed teacher though, that is so unprofessional. What if after she left, no one ever told that girl how unsafe that is, and she did herself some serious damage? I can't believe she just walked out. Looking back on it, it was absolutely unprofessional. She was dead serious when she asked to, so I hope someone set her straight. When I was 12, a kid in my class asked, if you can't get pregnant from anal sex, why doesn't everyone just do anal and then switch when they do want to have a kid? I wonder what he's doing nowadays. This guy was thinking outside the box. My track coach is also my school's health teacher. My freshman year, I coincidentally had him for health. He's a pretty awkward guy already, so watching him get through sex ed was entertaining in itself. His favorite story to tell is about the time he explained to a student how an erection works. The student in question thought that a small bone emerged from the pelvis, and that's what caused rigidity. Once it was properly explained, the kid responded with, "So there's no bone in boner?" To be fair, humans are one of the few primates that don't have a bone in their penis. To be even more fair, humans are one of the few mammals not to have a bone in their penis. Little fact, walrus penis bones are like the size of your forearm. It wasn't a class I was in, but during middle school our health and gym classes were segregated by sex for everything, not just sex education. When giving us sex education, our teacher told us a story about how he used to not even bother to mention some things about male anatomy that should have been really obvious to everyone in the class of all males. One of those obvious things was that men have 2 testicles. He figured for a while he didn't even have to mention it to a class of all boys. But then the one time he decided to mention it, a student saw him after class and said, something must be wrong me, because I only have 1 testicle." Apparently that person had a birth defect where the other testicle was trapped inside their body. There was no real harm to it, other than he'd likely have a much harder time getting a girl pregnant. After that he explained he felt the need to explain everything about male anatomy to a class of all teenage males, no matter how obvious it should have been. So, I was recently reading an old guidebook to Cambodia, and it said that a traditional folk remedy for an undescended testicle in Khmer culture is to put an earring on the affected child, which means that Khmer people tend to snicker at men wearing earrings. Holy shit. This explains why my Cambodian mother always told me to never pierce my ears, I'm male, and why none of my male relatives have earrings. Not a teacher, but I'm pretty sure I made it awkward for her. I was a big fan of King of the Hill, and an episode aired where Bobby was kicking dudes in the balls to get his way, and when he kicked his mom it didn't work, and she felt no pain. I thought that was unfair/BS, so I asked my female teacher in 6th grade if kicking a girl in the vagina hurt like kicking a dude in the balls, and if not, why. Luckily I was smart enough to ask in private, as I had a sense of how ridiculous that question was, and not everything on TV is true. She simply said yes like hell. That was it. She didn't ask why I thought to ask, she only sought to dispel what I watched on Sunday night. She was a cool teacher though. Not so much clear up, but a funny thing happened during sex edition. We had a guy brag about beating off 12 times a day and asked if his dick bleeding was normal. He had to change schools. Probably to a special school for the blind. Goddamn, 12 times a day. Not a teacher, but in my class in grade 10, had a guy ask to have twins. Do you have sex twice? And also, can you use a plastic bag as a condom? A friend of mine went to a back hills country school. She was unaware that women have 3 holes down there. She's 24. I was astonished. Gay guy here. Till women have 3 holes down there. I'll be 27 in 2 days. 3rd hole is the urethra. Easy to miss. It's not like there's some magical super secret double plus good vagina we've been hiding from you. 1. Don't think he's been searching for it. 2. I have a feeling it's more a super double or full hurts like a methodiking witch vagina. Not a teacher, but during the early days of my masturbatory adventures I used to have this misunderstanding and legitimate fear that if I did it too much I'd eventually run out of sperm, when you eventually shoot blanks after a long day's work. Anyway, we were sitting in class watching one of those health videos from the 80s or something, when the lady explained how the testicles are always producing sperm every few days for your entire life, and in front of the whole class I just blurted out, "Phew. Well, that's a relief." Everyone just laughed, cause they thought I was joking. I wasn't. My first serious girlfriend didn't know what a clit was. She also dropped, "Wait, you've had a boner before?" before we started dating. We were sophomores in high school. I was in biology class and our teacher asked the group, "Who knows the purpose of male pubic hair?" One of the students raised his hand. Camouflage. Edit. As some people have asked, the answer to why men have pubic hair is apparently to reduce friction during sex. Also, my highest rated comment is now about pubic hair. Awesome. As a little kid in sex ed, I had to ask the question, what if it gets stuck? Story from my mother on her emergency room rotation. Call comes in saying that the ambulance responded to a 999 call. Turns out the girl's vaginal muscles had spasmed and trapped his penis. They were being brought in by a fire truck because they had to remove the wall of the couple's house. In order to remove them, she had to leave before they came in, but apparently they were very embarrassed about the whole thing. So the fireman put them on a stretcher and just threw a blanket over them before carrying them out of the house and down the street. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to my channel for more curated daily Reddit stories.